Have you ever been so exhausted you could barely keep your eyes open, and then the second your head hits the pillow, your brain flips a switch, like it's about to give a presentation to 1,000 people? Suddenly you're replaying that awkward thing you said in a meeting 3 years ago. You're planning tomorrow's to-do list. You're wondering if you left the stove on. Meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking, and every glance at it just makes things worse. A lot of this comes down to how we live now. Hustle culture tells us rest is optional. Caffeine gets refilled long after noon. And our phones keep our eyes locked on blue light right up until the moment we try to sleep. It's not exactly a recipe for a calm nervous system. So today, I want to walk you through something a little different. Not another list of tips you've already heard 100 times. Instead, we're going to look at how you can actually retrain your nervous system using techniques that draw on real physiology, including a method that fighter pilots reportedly use to fall asleep almost anywhere. If you've ever lain awake at 2 a.m. just from overthinking, go ahead and hit that like button. You're definitely not the only one. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. You cannot force yourself to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more your body tends to release cortisol, a stress hormone that essentially tells your brain, stay alert. It's a strange loop. Wanting sleep badly enough can actually push it further away. To understand why, it helps to know a little about your autonomic nervous system. Think of it as having two main modes. There's the sympathetic mode, often nicknamed fight or flight, which keeps you alert and ready for action. And there's the parasympathetic mode, sometimes called rest and digest, which is where your body slows down, your heart rate drops, and sleep becomes possible. The goal isn't to fight your brain into submission, it's to gently flip that internal switch from fight or flight over to rest and digest. And one of the most reliable ways researchers describe doing this is through something called conditioning, essentially teaching your body a repeatable pattern it learns to associate with sleep. That brings us to technique number 1, sometimes called the military sleep method. The story behind it traces back to a relaxation routine described in a book from the 1980s about training used at U.S. Navy pre-flight school, intended to help pilots fall asleep quickly, even under stressful conditions, like the sound of gunfire nearby. Reports suggest that after around 6 weeks of consistent practice, the method worked for the vast majority of people who tried it. As with a lot of viral claims like this, the exact numbers get repeated a lot online, so it's worth treating them as a helpful benchmark rather than a guarantee. Here's how it works, step by step. First, the body scan. Start with your face. Relax your forehead, your jaw, the muscles around your eyes. Most people don't realize how much tension they're carrying in their face until they actually try to let it go. Just try it right now while you're watching this. Notice the difference. Next, move to your shoulders and arms. Let your shoulders drop as low as they'll go, away from your ears. Relax each arm, one at a time, letting them feel heavy, almost like they're sinking into the mattress. Then your chest. Exhale slowly and let your chest loosen as the breath leaves. From there, work your way down, relaxing your thighs, your calves, and finally your feet, all the way to your toes. The last step is what some call the mental clear. Picture yourself lying in a canoe on a perfectly still lake, nothing but calm water in every direction. Or, if that doesn't resonate, just repeat the phrase, don't think, quietly in your mind, for about 10 seconds. It sounds almost too simple, but the idea is to give your mind one narrow, boring lane to stay in, instead of letting it wander into 100 different directions. Now, if your mind is the type that just won't stop chewing on tomorrow's problems, that's actually the #1 reason a lot of people report trouble falling asleep. It's not the room, it's not the mattress, it's the thinking. That's where technique number 2 comes in, something called cognitive shuffling. It was developed by cognitive scientist Luc Baudouin, and the idea is almost playful in how simple it is. Here's what you do. Picture a random, unrelated object. Let's say a balloon. Hold that image for a few seconds. Then move to another completely unrelated object, maybe an elephant, then a slice of pizza, then an umbrella. Keep going, object after object, with zero logical connection between them. Why would something this random actually help? The thinking behind it is that your brain associates coherent, connected thought with being awake and alert, the kind of focused thinking you'd need if you were actually facing a problem to solve. Random, disconnected images, on the other hand, don't require that kind of vigilance. By flooding your mind with meaningless pictures, you're essentially sending a signal. There's no real threat here, nothing worth staying alert for, so it might be safe to power down. It's a small study area, and researchers are still exploring exactly how well it works and for whom, so it's worth trying it out for a few nights before deciding whether it's your thing. But a lot of people find it's a much easier habit to stick with than simply telling themselves, "Stop thinking," which, let's be honest, rarely works. Now here's the part that turns these techniques from a one-time trick into something closer to actually rewiring your brain. Falling asleep on command isn't really about willpower. It's about building a trigger, a consistent cue your brain learns to associate with sleep, the same way a dog learns to associate a bell with dinner. Temperature is one of the most underrated pieces of this puzzle. Your core body temperature actually needs to drop slightly to initiate sleep, which is part of why a room that's too warm can leave you tossing and turning. Many sleep researchers point to somewhere around 65 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 18 degrees Celsius, as a comfortable range for most people, though of course everyone's a little different. Light matters just as much. Screens emit blue light that can interfere with melatonin production, the hormone that helps regulate your sleep-wake cycle. Turning off screens, or at least switching to blue light blockers, an hour before bed gives your body a clearer signal that nighttime has actually arrived. And then there's what's sometimes called the 20-minute rule. If you've been lying in bed for around 20 minutes without falling asleep, get up, go to another room, do something calm and low stimulation until you feel drowsy again, then head back to bed. This might feel counterintuitive, but the goal is to protect the mental association between your bed and sleep. If you spend hours lying awake, scrolling your phone, or stressing in bed, your brain can start to link the bed itself with wakefulness and anxiety instead of rest. Over time, if you're consistent, your brain starts to treat the bed itself as a cue. Just lying down in that cool, dark room becomes part of the trigger, the same way certain smells or songs can instantly transport you back to a specific memory. That's conditioning at work. So let's bring this all together. Rewiring your brain isn't an overnight fix, even though the title of this video promises 120 seconds. The Navy's own training reportedly took about 6 weeks of repetition before it became reliable. That's not a flaw in the method. That's just how conditioning works. Your nervous system needs repeated evidence before it fully believes the new pattern. If you try the body scan tonight and it doesn't work perfectly the first time, that's completely normal. Give it a real chance, a few weeks of consistent practice, before deciding whether it's for you. One quick note before we wrap up. If you're dealing with ongoing, serious sleep problems, the kind that affect your daily life for weeks or months at a time, it's worth talking to a doctor or a sleep specialist. These techniques can be a genuinely useful part of a healthy sleep routine, but they're not a substitute for professional care when something more persistent is going on. So here's my question for you. On an average night, about how many minutes does it take you to actually fall asleep? Drop the number in the comments. I'm genuinely curious whether most of you are closer to 5 minutes or 45. And if falling asleep is only half your battle, if the bigger issue is dragging yourself out of bed with zero energy the next morning, I've got a video breaking down how to design a morning routine that actually sets your energy up for the whole day. Click on it right on your screen now. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe, so the next video like this one finds its way to you.